What if even a burger becomes a luxury for Americans? 10 years ago, $5 could fill you up at Wendy's, with a Coke and some change left over for a tip. Now, $5 is only enough to buy half a serving of potatoes. Over the past year, a series of fast food chains, from Subway and Denny's to Red Lobster, have closed hundreds of locations. Consumers are cutting spending, companies are laying off employees, and the signs that once shone brightly are now extinguished like old stars that have run out of fuel. Fast food was once the common language of Americans, the thing that connected all classes. Now, it's become living proof that the middle class is shrinking bit by bit. The question is, if America can no longer sustain fast food, which once nourished the entire 20th century, what will collapse next? Let's delve into 12 seemingly small stories that are actually the underground news of the entire economy. You know, in 2024, over 600 Subway stores in the US have closed. Imagine this. Every day that passes, nearly 2 sandwich shops disappear. No loud sounds, no grand announcements, just quietly removing the yellow sign that the whole country once considered a cheap fast food option. Subway was once the choice of working Americans. $5 for a long sandwich, a few slices of cold cuts, and the feeling of eating healthier than fast food. But now, that combo sometimes reaches $11, $12. A fast meal costs the same as a small tank of gas, or the daily medication for a retiree. And when Americans have to choose between a full stomach or gas to get to work, the sandwich is no longer a faithful companion. Subway was once the king of franchises. Anyone could open one, anywhere. They sprang up like weeds after the rain. Gas stations, street corners, shopping districts. Subway was every place. But then, that very thing affected them. When you have a Subway on every block, you're no longer special, you're redundant. Add to that rising raw material costs, escalating rent, and employees demanding higher wages. The fast in fast food becomes fast burn, burns out quickly. And don't forget, Subway's healthy eating image is no longer fresh. The younger generation looks for salad at Whole Foods, while the older generation counts every penny. When cheap is no longer cheap, the brand that once prided itself on value for money is abandoned by its own thrifty customers. For millions of middle-aged Americans, Subway is more than just a sandwich shop. It's a stopping point between 2 shifts. It's a quick lunch before picking up my grandchild from school. It's not a luxurious choice, nor is it poor. It's just right. Now what? The familiar store closed, or raised prices to an unreasonable level. A meal that was once comfort food became a considered purchase. A place that was once convenient is now a luxury. They don't say it, but when they have to cook for themselves or choose a McChicken over a fresh sandwich, it's not just about the food, it's about feeling pushed to the margins of old habits by the economy. How ironic. Subway once taught Americans, eat fresh. And now, they're just trying to stay afloat. Eat it raw? It's difficult when the purse is completely empty. Do you think Subway will make a comeback? Or is this the moment Americans officially say goodbye to the legendary $5 lunch? And if a brand that once dominated every street corner like Subway can't stand strong, what awaits the hamburger giants who are twice as expensive? Do you think Subway pulling out was the saddest news? Wait a minute. It's Wendy's turn now. That brand with the bright red hair and familiar smile is closing between 200 and 350 stores before the end of 2025. Once upon a time, Wendy's was the middle-class friend of America. Not as expensive as a restaurant, not as cheap as McDonald's. But now, even that friend is packing their bags. In many towns, people woke up to find their familiar Wendy's suddenly completely empty. Without a grand announcement, all that remained was a hastily taped sign on the glass door that read, "Closed for good." According to the report, Wendy's calls this a restructuring to optimize the system, But for the people, it's simply this. A familiar lunch spot is gone. And the problem isn't with the flavor. Wendy's still has thick burgers, crispy fries, and creamy milkshakes. The problem is, customers are no longer flush with cash. Everything is going up, except for income. The piece of beef has increased in price. The frying oil is rising. Employee salaries increased. But people's spending levels are decreasing. When the Baconator combo jumped from $7 to nearly $11, American consumers started doing something they rarely did before, skipping their favorite burger. Wendy's fell into the trap of being too big a brand to be flexible. We can't discount too heavily because operating costs are high, and we can't go upscale because middle-class customers are tightening their belts. As a result, they are stuck between two ends of the market. The rich don't choose, the poor can't afford it. Americans used to go to Wendy's not just for the food, but for the feeling of real food for real people. It's the choice of the working class, of middle-aged fathers grabbing lunch after a truck driving shift. But when you see the price of a burger go over $10, while gas, rent, and medical expenses are all skyrocketing, Wendy's no longer feels real, but rather a small luxury. And the irony is, Wendy's is spending money to renovate a large number of stores to modernize them. Digital screens, smart tables, dual-lane drive-thrus. That's nice. But ask yourself, what's the point if customers no longer have money to come in? Wendy's downsizing is not just a business matter. It's a reminder that the American middle class, those who once fueled the entire consumer economy, are being squeezed between prices and income. A closed Wendy's means several dozen people lose their jobs, a few hundred regular customers lose their habits, and a corner of American memory goes dark. Subway retreats, Wendy's shrinks. So, will those sit-down chains, like TGI Fridays and Red Lobster, survive? It's time for America to admit, eating out is no longer a common pleasure, but a privilege reserved only for those who can afford it. Once a place Americans sought refuge after a long, tiring week, TGI Fridays with the slogan, "Thank God it's Friday." And yet, now they have to say, "Thank God it's bankruptcy." In 2024, this restaurant chain officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, closed dozens of locations, and is selling off a series of additional properties to pay off its debts. What was once a symbol of joy has now become the unpaid bill of an entire era. If Subway and Wendy's are fast and convenient, then TGI Fridays is a place for slow, enjoyable dining. Family, friends, birthdays, anniversaries. Who hasn't sat under those yellow lights, ordered a steak, listened to 80s music, and felt like they deserved a break? But as all costs skyrocketed, rent, food, labor, utilities, that feeling of worthiness began to come at a high price. A dinner at Fridays now costs between $25 and $35 per person. For a family of 4, that's over €0 for 2 hours of relaxation, equivalent to half a week's grocery money. And as the wallet thins, weekend fun suddenly becomes end-of-month sin. Fridays didn't collapse just because of prices, but perhaps also because American habits have changed. After the pandemic, everyone got used to eating in their cars, having food delivered to their homes, ordering quickly, and then leaving. While Fridays still maintains its long-stay restaurant model with high service costs, spacious tables and chairs, and bright lighting, a luxury in an era where everyone counts every cent. Experts call this the post-pandemic effect, but for those in the industry, it feels like a slow-moving storm sweeping away all traditional restaurants. Fridays tried to refresh, cocktail bar, fancier menu, but instead of attracting customers, it only made middle-class patrons feel distant. Because when you're worried about the electric bill, no one's in the mood for a second margarita. For many older people, TGI Fridays is a memory, a place for first dates, anniversary dinners, or simply where they feel they belong. When that store disappeared, they didn't just lose a place to eat. They lost a piece of old-fashioned American culture, sitting, talking, laughing, and not being in a hurry. Now, even rest is being revalued. Behind every closed store are dozens of people who have lost their jobs and hundreds of diners who have lost their meeting place. When weekend fun turns into weekend debt, America understands that even joy is being devoured by inflation. And if restaurants with lights, music, and cocktails can't keep customers, will a slightly more upscale fast food chain like Red Lobster, once a symbol of affordable luxury, survive the storm? Oh, great. Even the garlic butter smell of American lobster will only be a memory. If you ever thought fast seafood was a paradox, Red Lobster is proof that sometimes paradoxes can survive until the waves crash. In 2024, Red Lobster officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, closing nearly 100 restaurants across the United States and Canada. A brand that was once the special evening for the middle class is now struggling like a beached shrimp because customers no longer dare to order a second portion of garlic butter. Red Lobster isn't exactly high-end, nor is it cheap fast food. It stands between two worlds, a little bit elegant, a little bit friendly. American families used to choose this place for small occasions, a portion of lobster, a few cheese biscuits, a cold mug of beer, affordable and comforting. But then the price of raw materials skyrocketed. Seafood, avocados, cooking oil, everything went up. A moderate meal now costs $30–40 per person, and for a family of 4, that figure can easily exceed $150. Just enough suddenly became excessive. As Americans began to tighten their belts, Red Lobster, once a small pleasure after a long week, became an unaffordable luxury. In an effort to attract customers, Red Lobster launched the Endless Shrimp program. The idea sounds appealing, but the reality is an endless money pit. According to an internal report, this program alone caused the company to lose over $11 million during the quarter. One diner happily shared, "I only spent $20 and had enough protein for the whole week." How ironic. Red Lobster wasn't killed by competitors, but by customers eating them out of business. Adding to high rental costs, rising interest rates, and a weakening middle-class customer base, the financial storm has swept this 50-year-old brand into a whirlpool. How ironic. Red Lobster means Red Lobster. Now red isn't the color of the logo anymore, it's the color of a bank account. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. Hundreds of commercial properties lost tenants. And the customers, they didn't just lose a place to eat, they lost an icon of everyday American joy. A place that once carried the saltiness of the sea now only carries the saltiness of unpaid bills. If a semi-upscale, semi-casual giant like Red Lobster can collapse, will purely American burger and taco chains like Jack in the Box, which rely heavily on long-distance drivers, be able to weather the storm? Let's continue with their story right now. If America was ever divided by hamburgers and pizza, the West has a hybrid child, Jack in the Box, where burgers meet tacos, and you can eat both in a single drive-thru. But now, that box is shrinking. By 2025, the chain will close 80 to 120 stores, sell off land, and downsize to weather the spending storm. A brand that was once a symbol of late-night, convenient, and fun eating has now become a map of gradually fading bright spots. Jack in the Box was once the late-night hero, a place where drivers, students, and night shift workers would go to refuel. But today, many of those places have turned off their lights. The old rundown shops located in a sparsely populated commercial area have become a burden. Nighttime customer volume decreased because of rising gas prices, because people are driving less, and because everyone is going to bed earlier now to save electricity. A 24/7 world is gradually disappearing, taking with it the brands that once thrived on it. Unlike many other fast food chains that lease their locations, Jack in the Box owns the majority of its stores. It sounds strong, but in times of rising interest rates and property taxes, holding on to land becomes a burden. Experts call it an asset-heavy model, while industry insiders are more blunt. The more land, the more debt. To survive, they were forced to gradually sell off properties, close weak locations, and transition to an asset-light model, one with fewer assets and lower risk. It sounds neat, but behind it are hundreds of employees losing their jobs and thousands of regular customers losing their familiar late-night dining spot. Jack in the Box doesn't just sell food. They sell convenience and freedom. A hot burger in the middle of the night is my symbol of being able to work, drive, and eat at any time. But as the economy forces people to slow down, cut spending, and go out less, those values also fade along with the drive-through lights. Behind the closures, it's not just about numbers, but a harsh reality. America is no longer fast. As the economic clock slows down, burgers also get cold. And when even late-night brands like Jack in the Box have to turn off the lights early, can America's most famous breakfast chain, Denny's, rise to the occasion every morning? On a Sunday morning in America, if there's any place that feels more like home than your own kitchen, it's Denny's. Wooden tables and chairs, a lingering coffee aroma, the sound of spoons tapping pancake plates, a national sound for the middle class. And yet, that sound is now fading. This 72-year-old company is preparing to close 150 stores before the end of 2025. A symbol of the American breakfast is now officially a victim of inflation and bird flu. According to the report, egg prices in the US have increased by over 15% in the past year. It sounds small, but with a life lived on omelets, pancakes, and egg sandwiches, it's a real nightmare. A Grand Slam breakfast that used to cost $7.99 now costs $2 to $3 in many places. Is that the pain of America today? People don't quit because they're bored, but because they're broke? Breakfast was supposed to be the most enjoyable meal of the day. Now we have to count every penny. Denny's was once the classic family dining model, slow-paced, intimate, and open to everyone. But this model is being squeezed between two pincers. On one side is cheap fast food like McDonald's and Dunkin'. On one side is young fast casual like IHOP or Starbucks, which attracts younger people more. When the real income of the middle class doesn't increase, they have to choose, either save or give up habits. But in America, giving up a habit is like losing a part of your identity. They used to say America runs on coffee. Now it seems America skips breakfast, because even a cup of coffee at Denny's costs almost as much as a gallon of gasoline. It's not just 150 stores. That's thousands of jobs disappearing. It's millions of older Americans who have to change small habits, things few people think would make them so sad. The loss isn't in the accounting books. It's in the feeling that life is shrinking bit by bit. And when breakfast, once a family ritual, is being cut back, will small sandwich chains that thrived on low prices, like Quiznos, still have a chance of survival? There was a time when people said, if Subway is the McDonald's of sandwiches, then Quiznos is the Starbucks of sandwiches. It sounds really fancy, until the bill arrives. In 2007, Quiznos had over 4,700 stores across the United States. Now, there are only about 150 left. Yes, it's not a sound issue. They lost over 97% of the system. From Subway's heavyweight competitor to a struggling survivor. Quiznos once created a small revolution. Sandwiches toasted right at the counter, cheese melted to perfection, and an aroma that filled the air. A significantly more upscale experience than Subway. Americans are delighted because it feels like they're eating better without spending too much more. But then, times changed. soaring raw material prices, high franchise fees, and when Subway started lowering prices, Quiznos became the more expensive option without being different enough. At some point, eating a little better isn't worth paying an extra $3, especially when those $3 is half a gallon of gas. Quiznos isn't as cheap as Subway, as upscale as Panera Bread, or as distinctive as newer brands like Jersey Mike's or Firehouse Subs. They stood in the middle, and in the middle, during a time of austerity, is precisely where one is most vulnerable. The model of fast but slightly upscale dining sounds good, but when consumers have to choose, they either go down to save money or up to enjoy themselves. What about Quiznos? Caught between two currents, slowly drifting into the past. In the old days, Quiznos sold sandwiches. Now, if they want to live, they have to sell emotions. But this brand doesn't offer any particular reason for people to return. Not the cheapest, not the tastiest, no story to remember. An older generation that once considered Quiznos a decent and affordable lunch is now returning to cooking at home. And the younger generation doesn't even know who Quiznos is. For many middle-class Americans, losing Quiznos wasn't just losing a restaurant. That's losing about 30 minutes of midday break, where they could sit still, eat a hot sandwich, and feel like life was still okay. Now that break is cut short, and when people no longer have time, nor do they have a place to take a breather, society becomes faster, but colder. And as mid-range fast food chains like Quiznos exit the stage, we turn to a seemingly immortal competitor, Domino's Pizza. There was a time when just hearing the ding-dong at the door meant dinner was ready. A hot pizza box, the aroma of cheese wafting through the air, a feeling of safety and convenience, just like a true American. But in 2025, that bell rings much less frequently. Domino's, the king of pizza delivery, is seeing a sharp decline in sales and closing dozens of stores globally, even in its home market. Yes, even pizza, the national dish of lazy weekends, hasn't escaped the spending storm. A medium Domino's pizza used to cost around 7 to 8 tom, but now in some places it's up to 12-14 tom, not including delivery fees, taxes, and tips. A pizza dinner for 4 can cost nearly $40, almost as much as 2 weeks of groceries at Walmart. When costs increase, but income remains the same, pizza also loses its flavor. Domino's lives by 2 words: delivery and speed. But in a post-inflation world, those 2 words are incredibly expensive. Gas prices are up, driver salaries are up, raw materials are up, while customers want prices to stay the same. The result? Domino's had to choose between raising prices to survive or keeping prices low to die slowly. And customers are no longer naive. They began to realize that baking a pizza at home with store-bought ingredients was half the price. And when the joy of convenience is replaced by the pride of saving, Domino's loses its biggest advantage. And if pizza, a dish for everyone, for every occasion, can't withstand this pressure, will classic burger chains like Hardee's, which rely on the middle-class working population, still have a place on the American culinary map? If Domino's is the symbol of fast dinner, then Hardee's is the symbol of Southern breakfast. But by 2025, that scene is fading. Hundreds of Hardee's locations in Tennessee, Missouri, and Illinois have closed one by one after the parent company declared bankruptcy in many areas. A brand that once represented pure American quality is now on the brink, not because of bad food, but because customers have changed. Hardee's was once a companion to the working class. It's not luxurious, but it's authentic. Now what? Many stores have been sealed, signs removed, and those American-style breakfasts are now just a memory. Hardee's is primarily concentrated in the central and southern states, where average incomes are low, the population is aging, and spending is constrained. When rent, insurance, and healthcare take up a large portion of income, A $7 burger is no longer an essential item. Furthermore, they are caught between an older customer base, loyal but frugal, and a younger generation that is no longer interested in the classic rural brand. Meanwhile, competitors like Chick-fil-A or Raising Cane's, offering cheaper and faster fried chicken, are taking market share. When you're not cheap enough to keep customers and not new enough to attract them, you become a memory. They say Hardee's opens every morning to feed America so it can work. Now, perhaps America's working too hard to make it to Hardee's on time. When a local brand collapses, it's not just about losing a restaurant. It's the thread that connects regions, cultures, and memories. A Hardee's sign with the lights off is a piece of old America disappearing. Now no one has time for that anymore. Fast food chains have fallen, but the story doesn't end with a few darkened signs. It's a reflection of America today, where even brands once considered mainstream, convenient, and timeless are no longer holding up. Americans don't stop being hungry, they just change the way they're hungry. Starving for trust, starving for time, starving for the feeling of security that at least I'll have enough to eat every weekend. And when fast food, a symbol of American consumer culture, also becomes a luxury, perhaps the issue is no longer about price, but how expensive this life has become. What do you think? Is this just a temporary downturn, or is it a sign that the American consumer model has reached its limits? Do you still eat out as often as before, or do you now have to count every penny before ordering? Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your true story directly from you. If you find this video helps you see America from a different angle, deeper, more real, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episodes. All data, figures, and statements in the video are compiled from public sources, financial reports, and reputable press analysis. This video is not intended to attack any individual or business. Viewers are encouraged to verify information from multiple sources before drawing their own conclusions. Thank you for joining me. See you in the next videos.